up your food. You just select what you want, put it in, heat it up, and it's done. So quick and easy, shows up every Friday, and you can customize your meal plan however you like. And if that is something of interest to you, there's a referral link that will actually help me out a little bit in the description below. You can select that, and it helps me and it helps you. So kind of a win-win for everybody. In that regard, I don't say it enough. I really need to be more proactive at thanking our supporters because truly we could not do what we do without you. Those of you who have been supporting this ministry over the years, thank you so much. Thank you. Again, we couldn't do it without you. Many have had to stop their support, understandably so, because many people are losing their jobs and not able to go to work and whatnot. So as a result, our support is not what it used to be. And I hate asking, truly I do. But I'm kind of getting at a situation where I'm looking at the Excel spreadsheet and the outgo is not matching the income. And, I don't have a job. This is what I do for a living, is provide content for you guys. So if the 10 years worth of free content that I have been providing to you guys is worth anything to you, we could certainly use your support. We appreciate it. And again, everybody that has supported us in the past, thank you so much. And we understand if you can't do it any longer, you got to take care of your families too. So enough about that. Zen, are you there?
I am, brother.
How you doing?
I'm doing really well. We celebrated Passover yesterday as well, and today on our calendar is the 15th, so it's the Sabbath of unleavened bread, and it's also the full moon, which, for our calendar, the full moon aligns with the 15th. But yeah, just been continuing work on different projects and different books, and doing research and studying, really enjoying the spring and seeing everything bloom, and the flowers and the pollen. Thank goodness it rained a little bit yesterday, but yeah, so everything's good here. I'm just really blessed and enjoyed Passover, and we actually did a 7-minute video of the prayer, and just talking about Passover at the very beginning, and then also we did communion, where because Passover is the celebration that the apostles and Christ had done, and when he told them to to break the bread and to drink the wine in remembrance of him. So we did that and released it on video, and had a really good time hanging out with my kids and one of my friends, Nora. And so yeah, had a really good Passover, and looking forward to continuing, because we're almost to the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries. And
yeah, we might actually get there tonight. Depends.
Yeah,
we'll see. Oh, wait a minute. I think I have. I don't have it within reach. Oh, maybe I do. Hang on a second. I have your calendar, and what is this? April. What's today? 8th. So
the 9th to now at midnight, but yeah.
Well, so yeah, I guess that's my question. How do you account the beginning of the day? Like, when does your day start?
With dawn and to dusk. I believe that just like it speaks about in the scriptures, as far as the daylight hours, the 12 hours a day. I also believe that Sabbath is celebrated from dawn to dusk. But with regard to our calendar, we just released the new one, which is the Enochian seasonal lunar solar calendar. And we do 2 of them. We do the regular January through December calendar, and then we do another one March to February, which aligns with God's calendar, because his seasons and his year begins with spring. And it's difficult to plot a lunar solar calendar a year in advance, because of the 29.541 days, the average as far as the synodic month. And so often what happens, especially in the winter months, is you get a back-to-back 30-day lunar month, and so that skews the calendar sometimes. And so, in fact, that's what happened. We had one day off in the other calendar, and so we fixed that. Because the April 25th is when the waxing crescent was actually sighted, and that made the first quarter Sabbath was on the first, and then the 8th would be the full moon, which is today, and then the 22nd would be the third quarter, and the first, the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd. So the 15th would be, which was next week would be the third quarter, and then 7 days after that would be the lunar conjunctive.
So the calendar that I have, it may have been an earlier print, seems like it's correct to me. On your calendar, okay, so I'm also of the opinion that the day begins at sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
And my jury, frankly, is still out as to whether a day is considered just the daylight period or the 24-hour period. I see precedents for both. I see day as representing the daylight, daytime, if you will, and yet a day encompassing a night, also. So I'm of the opinion that the day begins at sunrise and goes all the way 24 hours until the next sunrise as a full 24-hour day. And there's all these different calendars out there, different Hebrew calendars, different traditional Jewish calendars, different Enoch calendars, different Zadok calendars.
Right.
Some of the Enoch Zadok crowd was like, well, we did Passover last month. I'm like, oh, brother, whatever. and then there's a whole other group of people that think that the full moon is the new moon. And so it's like, oh, for crying out loud. And that's why I am not at all dogmatic about any of these things. I am, a student like anybody else out there, and I'm trying to figure this out myself. What this year I decided to do is, and it may be kind of a hybrid calendar, what makes sense to me, since the year begins in the spring, is that sort of the solar lunar idea that the spring vernal equinox is the marker. Okay, that's we wait for that. That you still have to finish off the end of the Hebrew month Adar, I think.
Right.
So whenever, I think it was March 19th, I think was the vernal equinox, and so you continue in that Hebrew month until the new moon, and then you start the Nisan month, and even in that regard, some say that the new moon is the conjunction. Some are the first visible, crescent. I was a conjunction guy for several years, then became convinced that it's the first visible crescent. So that's what I'm going off of right now. So for me right now, people ask me, what calendar are you on? Well, I'm still trying to figure that out myself, but this is a good time to start. So this is my current understanding of how I'm starting this year is vernal equinox, wait for the first new moon that will end the previous Hebrew calendar and start the new Hebrew calendar. And the first crescent, the new moon, day 1 of Nisan, 14th day is Passover. On your calendar, you have that was on Monday, Passover, Nisan 14, which is why I did it on Monday. But that's not the only reason I did it on Monday. I did it on Monday. I initially saw it on your calendar, but then I went and looked up, okay, when is the full moon? And so I went online and the old Farmer's Almanac, almanac.com, and just typed in full moon for April. And it says April's full moon rises on the night of Tuesday the 7th, which was last night. And Sheila and I were out for a walk, and sure enough, it was a full moon. They call it a pink moon. I didn't notice anything different about it. Some people said it was, a super moon, pink moon, whatever. The super pink moon apparently was this year, but to me, when I went out there for a walk, it looked just like any other full moon I've ever seen. But I took that as confirmation that that was the 15th. And so yesterday for me was a first day of unleavened bread, high Sabbath kind of deal. So now I am at the end of day 2 of the second day, of unleavened bread. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, that's exactly how we had it set up. But I always look for the waxing crescent and the appearance of it. And on the calendar that you have, which is from January to December, we had that the waxing crescent was spotted on the 24th, but it was actually on the 25th that that it was sighted. And so I shifted the calendar for the new one, the seasonal calendar, and began the Rosh Chodesh Nisan on the 25th of April. And then you have again the 7 days thereafter, which would be on the first. That would be the 8th of Nisan. That's the first quarter Sabbath. And then the Passover was on the 7th for us because, again, it just shifted that one day. But then the 15th of Nisan is the 8th, which is today, the full moon Sabbath. And it is, it's still, even though
it's starting to wane now.
Yeah. Because of that one day, as far as the waxing crescent, it does skew it just a little bit, but it is mostly in line with the quarterly phases.
Well, like I said, everybody's got to, work this out as best they can. Just trying to figure it out. But I'm going to go off the premise that I described earlier. So at least, it's like if you can at least get the month right, the first month, then everything's pretty simple from there because go, first month, second month, and and then you get to the seventh month. That's when you get the fall feast and stuff.
Yes,
and of course, the Pentecost being 50. What's it? 50 days from? Is it first fruits? I think it's 50 days from first fruits. I forget. Don't take my word for it. People read Leviticus 23. Figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, from the 16th. But I actually, I believe that in looking at that, because when you look at Leviticus 23 on the Pentecost, it says 7 perfect weeks. And so I believe that you don't include the translation days nor Kadesh in that count. And so it's always going to be the day after the 7th Sabbath, which is the 8th of Sivan. And so Pentecost or Shavuot is always the 9th of Sivan, which is the day after the 7th Sabbath, following the day of first fruits.
Well, so, and this is where, right now, because I'm not convinced of the lunar Sabbath, so you have a floating Sabbath, so you'd be counting your Sabbaths, on the floating scale, whatever day it is. What day is it for you this week?
The Wednesdays are the Sabbath.
So today's your Sabbath. So so today would be the first of the 7 Sabbaths that you're counting.
Well, tomorrow will be the 16th of Nisan, and so there's 7 Sabbaths after. So the 15th, which is next month, would be the first Sabbath after the 16th of Nisan. So the 16th of Nisan, which is tomorrow, is the first day of the Omer. And if you I'll pull it up on the seasonal calendar here. You have the Rosh Chodesh for the month of Iyar happening.
Is there a link I can put up for everybody?
Yeah, it's just sacredwordpublishing.com, the Enochian calendar. You can find,
Sacred Word Publishing.
Yeah, sacredwordpublishing.com, the Enochian calendar, and there should be, this month should be up there. And if you look at it, you can see.
Full calendar. Click here to show calendar below. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's your schedule calendar, it looks like. Where's the Enoch calendar?
It should be, it should be on one of the main tabs.
Enoch calendar, I see.
Yeah, Enoch calendar.
Gotcha. Okay, so where are you now?
Okay, so you look at the 9th of April is the first day of the Omer, the 16th of Nisan. You see that?
Yeah.
And then you see on the 23rd is a Rosh Kadeth for the month of Iyar, which would make Sabbath on Thursday next month. But anyways, we don't include Rosh Kadesh or Translation Day in the count of the Pentecost because it's 7 perfect weeks. And so you have 7 Sabbaths after the 16th, which would be the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th, and then you go to the next month. And then you have on the, hold on, I just skewed it.
Is there?
Oh yeah.
Is there a link? Because all I have is April. I can't advance.
Oh yeah, I'd have to. I'll have to send it to you, and
Okay.
yeah, and I can, it will
Post
be
it in
up.
the chat room or something. Maybe Justin or somebody.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and he's listening.
Okay.
But it would be 7 Sabbaths afterwards, and so always, because the Sabbaths occur on the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th of the lunar months, then you're going to have 3 after the 16th of Nisan as part of this month, and then you'll have 4 next month, and then you have on um, the first Sabbath of the month of Sivan, and then the day after that first Sabbath, which is the 7th Sabbath after the 16th of Nisan, it is always the 9th of Sivan. And so that's always Pentecost.
Okay. Yeah, ours is different from that, so I'm going to have to, like I said, the calendar that I'm sort of trying to walk out here is going to be a hybrid of all this. I need to get Zach from My House Ministries. They have it's similar to yours, but closer to my view of when the Sabbath is on, the Saturday Sabbath. Yeah, this is the year I'm determined to try to get something working in my mind that actually gets everything that I think I understand anyway. And look, I've said it before to many people. These are moedim, which means appointed times that we are supposed to mikra. The Hebrew word is rehearse, and having a theater background and having written and directed many theatrical plays, we have many rehearsals where everybody's not getting everything right.
Right.
That's why you do rehearsals. And then finally you have a dress rehearsal, you have a tech rehearsal, then it's the main event. And so I personally believe we may be in the tech rehearsal phase mode right now, where everybody's still trying to get things technically right. And, not everybody's on the same page. I believe the 2 witnesses, when they do show up, they'll get us all in sync, show us exactly what's right, what's wrong, and get us in right. And then we'll have a full dress rehearsal probably, and then it's the main event if it follows that same format. I'm not saying it is, but that's the way it feels like for me. So that's what we're doing. This is the first year I actually kind of made sure I had my go bag ready. It says eat the Passover in haste, and I didn't sleep with my clothes on or anything, but I had my clothes like right next to me ready if I had to get up and go. And what we did this year is there's a video called the Passover. What is it? I forgot what it's called now. I posted. Let me put it on the. Hang on a second. On Ephraim Awakening, if people go to my Ephraim Awakening website, the last blog that I posted, because a lot of people are asking me, how do we do it? Like for many people, this was the first year people did Passover. So, it's exciting, but it can be confusing. People trying to figure it out. So I wrote a blog post April 5th called Keeping Passover.
Awesome.
And, again, I'm not claiming to be right. This is my understanding, and, I reserve the right to be wrong. But I went through and kind of described, when is it? How do we celebrate it? The scriptures that referred to it. Had some videos. There's a video I posted by Zach Bauer, and it's real important that people understand. Look, none of us can truly keep it the way we're supposed to keep it because things aren't in place for us to do so. So we can do the best we can, and it's all about obedience and trying to get on God's page. And it's a celebration of remembrance anyway. So,
Right.
There's an issue about the lamb and all that stuff, and how you do it, and whatever. And I'm of the opinion Yeshua is the final lamb that takes away the sins of the world. So I'm not raising a lamb in my property and killing it or anything like that.
Right.
When do we eat it? And Yeshua? Did Yeshua eat a Passover meal? The so-called Last Supper. I'm of the opinion that he did, and gave some reasons for that and some links for people to check out. And had no idea that it says, like everything else, it's so contentious. People are like, people going nuts. I'm like, look, just. It says point blank, he longed to eat the Passover. He ate the Passover. They went to prepare a place that he could eat the Passover. I'm like, how many times I got to say it in Matthew, Mark, Luke, before you finally get it? There was a pretty cool graphic I saw online. Because the command is to eat between the two evenings. So, if you believe the day begins at sunrise, like you and I do, that's not in conflict with anything. The command is to eat it between the two evenings. So the evening of the day before and the evening of that ends the day that he was crucified. Anytime in that time period, you can eat the Passover. So he did. But there's a video called the Passover Movie. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like 49 minutes long. It's actually, I think it's really well done. And so what we did this year is we got the various elements for eating set up, and you could pretty much just follow the video. But the video is done as a narrative, like as a movie of events taking place 1 year after the crucifixion. And one of the people in the family was a follower. He was the firstborn of the household, and he was trained to be a rabbi. But he followed the ministry of Yeshua, followed him right through the crucifixion. He saw everything. I won't spoil the ending of it because I just love the way the ending is and who you find out that this guy is. But to me, it's a beautiful little video and easy to follow along and worked out really well. It was really just Sheila, myself, our niece, and Sheila's sister, and her mother did like a FaceTiming with us. So, awesome. It was just a little small thing, and we watched the video together. And I prepared a little sheet that I read from, and described what the Exodus was about and what the what we call the Lord's Supper, the meal that he had with his disciples was about, and all that. And so, it went so well. We're like, you know what? I think this may become a family tradition.
Praise God, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's easy. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't full of, long drawn out teachings or anything like that. Like, so many of the other ones that we've been to, and, that's needed right now because people still don't understand. So, you kind of have to do long teachings. But, after over 10 years of doing this, I'm like, look, when can we get to the part where we're celebrating the same way we used to do Xmas and Ishtar Day? We didn't have teachings all day long. We just celebrated. So
right.
That's what we did. And looks like we're going to break. We'll come back and we'll jump right into the Book of Enoch.
Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity, but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures. Every day, questions arise.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses,
which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible?
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Join us every other Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Hello friends, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
I'm your host, Rob Skiba, and we are now going to jump into the Book of Enoch. And let me look and see here. Looks like I will be starting in chapter 68, I believe. And you will be starting in 69 in the Charles, correct?
Yes.
Sure.
One question really quickly. With regard to that Passover video, is that on YouTube or Netflix or?
Oh, yeah. Let me put it back up on the screen here. So if you go to EphraimAwakening.com and in the main menu, not on the main menu, on the front page, let me go back. Just go to the EphraimAwakening.com and then scroll down when you see April 5th, 2020, Keeping the Passover. Click on that link. That's the blog that I referred to, and I actually embedded the video.
Great.
So there's Zach Bauer's video talking about it, and then I think then there's Lex Myers also agreeing that Yeshua ate the Passover meal, and then the third video it's called the Passover movie. You can just look it up on YouTube too. It's called Passover movie: The Messiah, Yahushua, Prophecy Fulfilled. Is the title.
I want to see that.
Yeah, it's really good. I get all choked up watching stuff like that, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it gets to be kind of emotional, man.
Mm-hmm.
In a good way. It's
right.
Yeah,
I'm deeply moved by stuff like that as well.
Yeah. I think you'll really enjoy that. Did you end up seeing The Champion after last week?
Oh no, not yet. But I will definitely check that out as well.
Yeah, that one. That one gets me choked up too, and I don't know if it's because of what we talked about that night, but I think it was the next day. It was either the next day or the day after. I had the weirdest dream, man. I was like, I was in the boxing ring, I was fighting. I've had many boxing dreams. That's nothing particularly unusual. But then after the dream was over, I was hanging out with Sylvester Stallone, but I think he was like, I don't think he was Rocky in there. I think he was like Rambo. But in the dream, like he was my father, and we were in this really nice house in the entranceway, and there was like a really fancy stone tile work in the floor, and he was taking a jackhammer to it, And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, and after he chopped up all the stone, there was and other filler stones and stuff he pulled away, and he picked up this green photo album that was memories of his time in war. And it was like something that he wanted to remember, but or didn't want to remember, but didn't want to forget kind of thing. I don't remember what it was, but it was like really emotional, man. I woke up afterwards, like, and like, as I was talking to him, like some woman pushing a baby stroller came in and interrupted the scene that we were having. And then I woke up, I'm like, what the heck was that all about? It has nothing to do with the champion, but other than the champion's, sort of a boxing allegory for the seed war. But anyway, it's like, why do we dream the things we do?
Right.
But yeah, I think you'll enjoy that too. In fact, I'll send you the links in Skype.
Cool. Yeah.
After we get off tonight.
All right. Excellent. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, man. So, chapter 68 in the Lawrence translation. After this judgment, they shall be astonished and irritated, for it shall be exhibited to the inhabitants of the earth. Behold the names of those angels. These are their names. The first of them is Semyaza. The second, Arstikafa. The third, Armin. The fourth, Kakabel. The fifth, Terrell. The sixth, Ramiel. The seventh, Daniel. The eighth, Kael. The ninth, that's a drink, Kael, like Kal-El, Superman. The ninth, Barakel. The 10th, Azazel. The 11th, Armors. The 12th, Baturel. The 13th, Basasiel. The 14th, Ananel. The 15th, Turiel. The 16th, Semapisiel. The 17th, Yatarel. The 18th, Tamael. The 19th, Tarel. The 20th, Rumel. The 21st, Azazel. That's interesting. It's got two different, or Azazel, Azaziel. Different spelling. It's got a Y in it. Charles doesn't even. It seems like Charles doesn't mention Azazel. I guess we'll find out in a few minutes. These are the chiefs of their angels, and the names of the leaders of their hundreds, and the leaders of their 50s, and the leaders of their 10s. And what I tell people, because my second book is called Archon Invasion, and Archon is just a Greek word that means chief, commander, leader, somebody in a position of authority. So these would be the Archons of the 200. They were the leaders of the 200. The name of the first was Yechem. It was who seduced all the sons of the holy angels, and causing them to descend on earth, led astray the offspring of men. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't see him in the list above, so this is another character, I guess. Because I always think of Semjaza as the leader.
Right.
The name of the second is Kasabel, who pointed out evil counsel to the sons of the holy angels and induced them to corrupt their bodies by generating mankind. Sons of the holy. So this is the Nephilim. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the Lawrence here. Yeah. The name of the third is Gadrel. He discovered every stroke of death to the children of men. He seduced Eve and discovered to the children of men the instruments of death, the coat of mail, the shield, the sword for slaughter, every instrument of death to the children of men. From his hand were these things derived to them who dwell upon earth from that period forever. The name of the fourth is Penemu. He discovered to the children of men bitterness and sweetness, and pointed out to them every secret of their wisdom. He taught men to understand writing and the use of ink and paper. Therefore, numerous have been those who have gone astray from every period of the world, even to this day. For men were not born for this, thus with pen and with ink to confirm their faith. Since they were not created except that, like the angels, they might remain righteous and pure. Nor would death, which destroys everything, have affected them. But by this their knowledge they perish, and by this also its power consumes them. The name of the fifth is Kasiad. He discovered to the children of men every wicked stroke of spirits and of demons, the stroke of the embryo in the womb, to diminish it, the stroke of the spirit by the bite of the serpent, and the stroke which is given in the midday by the offspring of the serpent, the name of which is Tabet. This is the number of the Kespel, the principal part of the oath which the Most High, dwelling in glory, revealed to the holy ones. Its name is Becca. He spoke to holy Michael to discover to them the sacred name, that they might understand that secret name, and thus remember the oath, and that those who pointed out every secret thing to the children of men might tremble at that name and oath. This is the power of that oath, for power it is, and strong. And he established this oath of Ake by the instrumentality of the holy Michael. These are the secrets of this oath, and by it were they confirmed. Heaven was superseded by it before the world was made forever. By it has the earth been founded upon the flood, while from the concealed parts of the hills the agitated waters proceed forth from the creation to the end of the world. By this oath the sea has been formed, and the foundation of it. During the period of its fury, he has established the sand against it, which continues unchanged forever, and by this oath the abyss has been made strong, nor is it removable from its station forever and ever. By this oath the sun and moon complete their progress, never swerving from the command given to them forever and ever. By this oath the stars complete their progress, and when their names are called, they return and answer forever and ever. Thus in the heavens take place the blowings of the winds. All of them have breathings and affect a complete combination of breathings. There the treasures of thunder are kept, and the splendor of the lightning. There are kept the treasures of hail and of frost, the treasures of snow, the treasures of rain and of dew. All these confess and laud before the Lord of spirits. They glorify with all their power of praise, and he sustains them in all that act of thanksgiving, while they laud, glorify, and exalt the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. And with them he establishes this oath, by which they and their paths are preserved, nor does their progress perish. Great was their joy. They blessed, glorified, and exalted, because the name of the Son of Man was revealed to them. He sat upon the throne of his glory, and the principal part of the judgment was assigned to him, the Son of Man. Sinners shall disappear and perish from the face of the earth, while those who seduce them shall be bound with the chains forever. According to their ranks of corruption shall they be imprisoned, and all the works shall disappear from the face of the earth, nor thenceforward shall there be any to corrupt, for the Son of Man has been seen sitting on the throne of his glory. Everything wicked shall disappear and depart from before his face. The word of the Son of Man shall become powerful in the presence of the Lord of spirits. This is the third parable of Enoch.
Wow.
There's a lot there.
Lots. All right, chapter 69. And after this judgment they shall terrify and make them to tremble, because they have shown this to those who dwell on the earth. And behold the names of those angels, and these are their names. The first of them is Samyaza, the second Artakifa, and the third Armin, the fourth Kokobel, the fifth Turiel, the sixth Rumjail, the seventh Danjal, the eighth Nikael, the ninth Barakel, the 10th Azazel, the 11th Armoros, the 12th Batargel, the 13th Busasagel, the 14th Hananiel, the 15th Turel, and the 16th Simopsiel, the 17th Jethrel, the 18th Tumael, the 19th Turel, the 20th Rumael, the 21st Azazel. And these are the chiefs of their angels and their names, and their chief ones over hundreds and over fifties and over tens. The name of the first, Jacon, that is the one who led astray all the sons of God, and brought them down to the earth, and led them astray through the daughters of men. And the second was named Aspiel. He imparted to the holy sons of God evil counsel, and led them astray, so that they defiled their bodies with the daughters of men. And the third was named Gadriel. He it is who showed the children of men all the blows of death, And he led astray Eve, and showed the weapons of death to the sons of men, the shield, the coat of mail, the sword for battle, and all the weapons of death to the children of men. And from his hand they have proceeded against those who dwell on the earth from that day and forevermore. And the fourth was named Penumu. He taught the children of men the bitter and the sweet, and he taught them all the secrets of their wisdom. And he instructed mankind in writing with ink and paper, and thereby many sinned from eternity to eternity, and until this day. For men were not created for such a purpose, to give confirmation to their good faith with pen and ink. For men were created exactly like the angels, to the intent that they should continue pure and righteous, and death, which destroys everything, could not have taken hold of them. But through this, their knowledge, they are perishing. And through this power, it is consuming me. And the fifth was named Kazdeja. This is he who showed the children of men all the wicked smiting of spirits and demons, and the smitings of the embryo in the womb, that it may pass away, and the smitings of the soul, the bites of the serpent, and the smitings which befall through the noontide heat, the son of the serpent named Tabayet. And this is the task of Caspiel, the chief of the oath which he showed to the holy ones, when he dwelt high above in glory. And its name is Bika. This angel requested Michael to show him the hidden name, that he might enunciate it in the oath, so that those might quake before that name and oath, who revealed all that was in secret to the children of men. And this is the power of this oath, for it is powerful and strong. And he placed this oath, Akai, in the hand of Michael. And these are the secrets of this oath. And they are strong through his oath. And the heaven was suspended before the world was created, and forever. And through it the earth was founded upon the water. And from the secret recesses of the mountains come beautiful waters, from the creation of the world and unto eternity. And through that oath the sea was created, and as its foundation he set for it sand against the time of its anger, and it dare not pass beyond it from the creation of the world unto eternity. And through that oath are the depths made fast, and abide and stir not from their place from eternity to eternity. And through that oath the sun and moon complete their course, and deviate not from their ordinance from eternity to eternity. And through that oath the stars complete their course, and he calls them by their names, and they answer him from eternity to eternity. And in like manner the spirits of the water and of the winds and of the zephyrs and their paths from all the quarters of the winds, and there are preserved the voices of the thunder and the light of the lightnings, and there are preserved the chambers of the hell, and the chambers of the hoarfrost, and the chambers of the mist, and the chambers of the rain and the dew. And all these believe and give thanks before the Lord of spirits, and glorify him with all their power. And their food is in every act of thanksgiving. They thank and glorify and extol the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. And this oath is mighty over them, and through it they are preserved, and their paths are preserved, and their course is not destroyed. And there was great joy amongst them, and they blessed and glorified and extolled because the name of that Son of Man has been revealed unto them. And he sat on the throne of his glory, and the sum of judgment was given unto the Son of Man. And he caused the sinners to pass away and be destroyed from off the face of the earth, and those who have led the world astray. With chains shall they be bound, and in their assemblage place of destruction shall they be imprisoned, and all their works vanish from the face of the earth. And from henceforth there shall be nothing corruptible, for that Son of Man has appeared, and has seated himself on the throne of his glory, and all evil shall pass away before his face, and the word of that Son of Man shall go forth and be strong before the Lord of Spirits.
Once again, Dave Murphy and
Right.
crowd like him. Who is
Right.
this Son of Man? If
Yeah.
it's not Yeshua, I don't know who fits this.
Nobody else fits the bill.
No,
No.
it's astounding to me, even like how often the Son of Man is referenced in the Book of Enoch. I mean, I
Right.
remember the first time I read through it, being impressed by how many times I saw it. But as we're going through it, it's like even more like, wow, he's like everywhere.
Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, there's so many mentions, and again, the whole thing of every knee shall bow, every tongue confess. He is the judge, even in the New Testament, the demons recognize him. Have you come to torment us before the time? And so they know him as judge too, and they speak of him as the Son of God, the Word. So yeah, there's no doubting everything. When you study the fullness of Scripture, everything points to Yahushua, Yah's salvation, as the Passover lamb, and also the Lion of Judah, the judge at the end of days, and that harvest ensues with his return, the second advent, the end of the age. Everything is geared towards that.
Yeah, amen. So, yeah, I forgot that Azazel was mentioned here in this chapter. It seems like do we get the same list in another chapter? I don't know why. It seems like I remember there being a list of the characters, and Azazel showed up in a different. I think there was a list earlier in the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, there was. I think it's like chapter 7 or something.
Something like that. One of the early chapters, and
Yeah.
it didn't mention Azazel. It is interesting that there's two Azazels here, one with a slightly
Right.
different spelling in the Lawrence. In the Charles, it's the same spelling. These other characters, so these are the leaders, and then we get the names of these other characters who were, apparently responsible for various things. So we see that just Jaquan guy, Angel,
Right.
appears in verse 4 to be the one who instigated the plan. Says that he's the one that led astray all the sons of God and brought them down to earth and led them astray through the daughters of men. So here it appears that he's the guy that instigated the plan, but elsewhere we see that Samjaza is the leader.
Right. Yeah, Samjaza. Yeah. I had a question for you with regard to the book that you always mention that has the names and the lexicon in there.
Yeah.
Does it by chance have the names of the various angels and what their names mean as well?
Because it's the canonical text, so it doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, you might get Michael and Gabriel and stuff.
Yeah,
but you're not going to
right.
get all these other ones. It would be really cool if somebody can, especially if somebody knows Hebrew, because a lot, most of these they end with L, so it's like something of God.
Of God, yeah.
Yeah, so we might get a hint because a lot of times, their name is like a job description.
Right, exactly, yeah.
The so and so of God that that did something. Yeah, so unfortunately that book doesn't cover that. And so the third here mentioned Gadriel. Now in other texts, isn't Gadriel another word for Satan or another name for Satan?
I believe it to be because, in my opinion, he is the one that seduced Eve, and we see that in, the mention of the serpent in 2 Corinthians. Paul mentions the beguilement of Eve by the serpent, but I do believe that all of that is the same, and that in Matthew chapter 13, it speaks of the enemy that snuck into the garden, and then in the later parable of the tares of the field, it says that that enemy is the devil, and the devil is the father of the tares. So,
Mm-hmm. So, in this narrative, then he just appears like another henchman in the crowd.
mm-hmm.
Although it is kind of because he's an anointed cherub, and these are watchers.
Right.
So, I wonder then if watcher instead of a breed is a job description.
I do believe so. Yeah, I believe that the watcher angels are much like the guardian angels, and that they are ascribed to.
They're observers.
They're observers, and they also report back to the Most High on the activities of man, and
so
even
Gabriel,
even night, I believe or twilight is when they do their reporting.
They do the reporting. So he's associated with showing the weapons of death and the shield and the coat of mail, and yet Azazel is the one that showed them how to dig the metals up and make those things.
Right.
We saw that in a previous chapter.
Mm-hmm. So he's like actually showing them how to use the metals into, like
Use
an
the weapons
armor.
that they've done,
A weaponsmith and armor.
It is interesting, though, that we see that all sin was ascribed to Azazel.
Yeah.
And yet you see some of the offenses listed here seem worse than what Azazel is attributed to having done.
Right.
So, there may be more to it than what we're given in the text here, obviously, if that's the case.
The Apocalypse of Abraham, it ascribes Azazel as being Satan, and that he is the one that seduced Eve in that particular text. And, I don't know, again, where any of the other associations, because it seems here that Azazel is one of the watchers, but in that particular text, he is the dragon that seduces Eve, and that brings forth his own bloodline. In that particular text, that's what Azazel's ascribed at. But I do find interesting in this particular text as well that it says that for men were created exactly like the angels.
Like the angels. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
We're going to go to break, and we'll come back and we'll pick up on that note.
Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures. Every day, questions arise.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses?
which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible.
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Join us every other Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Hello friends, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba. For the second hour of the broadcast, we're talking about the Book of Enoch. And if you were watching during the commercial break, I was showing a little video for Trifecta. Pretty cool, man. I got to say, the food's really good. And if you guys are scared to get out or don't want to deal with all the craziness of going out and about and putting on masks and waiting in line and dealing with crazy people, it might be a good option for you. It's like $100 a week. And I don't know how much you're spending on groceries, but it's probably more than that. It's delivered right to your door. So the affiliate link, referral link is in the description below if you are interested. Zen, right before the break, you brought up the passage that talks about that people were created exactly like the angels. That's verse 11 in the text that we were reading. Yeah, man, that jumped out at me too. That, because Yeshua, and this is it's actually one of the arguments people try to use against the angel view of Genesis chapter 6, is the point to where Jesus says, when the question came up about marriage, and he said, no, you'll be like the angels in heaven, and who are neither given or taken in marriage. And, my argument, my counter argument to that is, first of all, the conversation is about what happens in heaven. Number one, we're talking about what happened on earth. Right. And secondly, you may have a different opinion on this, but I don't see any precedence for female angels. I see male angels everywhere. Right. But the fact that men were created exactly like the angels, well, I mean, we have body parts, and apparently they have body parts that are the same. If we were created exactly like them.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, with regard to angels, I believe that they are hermaphrodites, and that they are both male and female, and that because there's the union, a completeness, a wholeness in the combination of both, even where Adam and Eve are talked about that when they come together, they will be one flesh. Yeah. And so that's, but with regard, to angels being able to eat and also being able to have sex with women, I specifically believe that the Watchers were put into flesh bodies, and that made copulation possible. The Kebra Nagast goes into great detail on that. But with regard to the angels in heaven, just like the Godhead, I believe it to be both male and female, and that, angels are similar, even though we know them to be and consider them to be male in aspect, and same as the Father in Christ, that they don't have sexual organs, or like they're not like humanity where we're born with, depending on what's between our legs, as far as being male or female. And that's all because those things are done in order for us to be able to procreate the race through sexual copulation. And that's how we are to bear seed and to bring on progeny. So, difference.
Yeah, there's I'm trying to remember where it says it in Enoch, that says, basically, you were already made for eternity. So, you have, that's why there's no marriage in heaven, that there's no copulation in heaven. So yeah, he's like, it's a different paradigm because they're already eternal beings and they don't need to, procreate.
Right.
But my argument also is that every time an angel is seen, not every time, but many times I should say, when angels appear throughout the Bible, they appear absolutely as men. They eat and drink, and even Paul says, hey, you could be entertaining angels unaware. So and my whole thing is like, look, if they have the plumbing for eating and drinking, and presumably what comes after that, it's not a stretch for me to believe that they also have the plumbing for procreation. So but right before that, it talks about writing, pen and ink, and it leads you to believe that this is a sin, which is kind of odd because we see the scriptures are written,
exactly,
with pen and ink later. And I've tried to kind of reconcile this and figure this out. So I'm curious as to your take on it. But my thinking was that, man was created perfect initially, and has had a far greater mental capacity than what we have today, and probably could just have total recall of everything, and wouldn't have any need of writing stuff down. But the idea that writing stuff down could be considered a sin, the thought that occurred to me was that, if Hebrew is the divine language, and I'm of the opinion that it is, that, and I don't want to use the word magic, but I don't know how else to describe it, that there's some sort of metaphysical, I don't know, some kind of power to the text itself.
Yes, I agree.
The people have talked about the Torah codes and things of that nature, which is a fascinating study, and I think it was Chuck Missler had a whole thing on sort of the holographic nature of the Torah. That when it was put in, and I don't know how they figured this out or did it, but I've heard several people talk about this, that when the Torah is put in Hebrew into like a computer program, it's three-dimensional. It's like it can be read forward, backwards, inside, upside down, from the left, from the right, in the equal letter distance spacing, the ELS and all that stuff, how the Torah codes are there, that it's actually like a, remember, the symbol, not the symbol, but the sort of the background image we see for the Matrix all the time, where it has like this sort of three-dimensional look of code kind of falling down. The Torah is sort of like that. And actually, I have a friend that was writing a fictional novel series, and he conceptualized it like sort of like a labyrinth, like the Word of God depicted as almost like a Borg cube that was like a maze that you navigate through. That the words themselves are three-dimensional, and you're going through them, and it's hard to explain. But it's so if that is the case, and the words have the inherent meaning of the word itself, but also have the meaning. Individual letters have meaning, and individual letters have numeric value. So, like, there's a lot going on in that writing. So, is that could that be the reason why, listen, this could be used for evil? And when you get into like the Key of Solomon and the Goetica and all the stuff that Solomon was allegedly associated with, and wisdom that he had supposedly given to him to control demons and whatnot, is that where the danger in writing comes in, or what's sort of your take on it?
Yeah, I think that is what it is. That writing, it is a power like prayer, and we don't understand the fullness of that, but certainly it can be utilized like a tool. For instance, God uses it to preserve truth and to show prophetically how he knows the end from the beginning and how he can reveal this to his prophets. But the legion and the powers and the principalities, they use it for evil and for cursing and for to create and to manifest that which is not good, that which is the opposite of life. And so they're using it in ways that should not be utilized. And I think that just like with everything, even with metals, metals can be used as tools, forks, spoons, knives, things of that nature. But then they corrupt and they create weapons and armor and things to have man kill themselves and each other, and they always corrupt everything. That's why we are shown in this passage all the things that they did to corrupt what and to create smitings and curses, even the death of children in the womb. I mean, who would have thought that all the way back then that this knowledge was passed on and shared by them and taught even to the women, because a lot of this is ascribed that they taught the women, made them enchantresses and sorceresses, and taught them how to conjure devils and demons in the same manner that Solomon had, was gifted with that talent and that ability. But certainly, the writings that they put down and that taught people how to conjure up devils and demons, I don't think those kind of things were to be passed on. It's even like the knowledge of the Watchers and the things that had happened pre-flood, that some of the descendants after the flood had found the writings of the Watchers and the stories of the Watchers, and then they began to read and also began to act upon and to perform and so yeah, I do think that words are very powerful, that prayers are the same way, that when you're asking or praying, you are manifesting goodness and you're giving homage and gratitude, thanksgiving to the Most High. But certainly prayers could be the opposite. You could have curses where a lot of people, like the things that are written in the satanic Bibles and all these books of magic, where they're teaching people to to sacrifice something or to utilize blood as a medium to perform these curses and to give them power. And so yeah, those kind of things, even though we don't understand the fullness of how they are triggered or how they are actuated, those kind of things, certainly the devils and the demons and the fallen angels, they understood, because they passed on these mysteries to others, and they began even back in that time, especially the giants. They were very skilled, said to be very skilled in magic and sorcery and conjuring devils and demons, and in becoming possessed and overcome in darkness in that manner. And so Yeah, I do absolutely believe that that is what is being alluded to here. Because you think about if writings and magic and incantations and curses and knowledge of how to conjure up devils and demons, these things are written down and then passed on, just how much folly they
Hmm.
would create and allow to enter into the world. And for people that don't understand what they're doing, and, like kids getting together and playing with Ouija boards on a Friday
Hmm.
night just
Yeah.
because they think it's, fun and games. I mean, that's insanity. They do not understand what they're doing and what kind of doorways and what kind of evil they're allowing to come and enter into their lives.
Yeah, I mean that would seem to me to be the reason for it. It is bizarre that he chose. I mean, I'm thankful he did because we wouldn't have the Bible otherwise,
Right,
or even the Book of Enoch for that matter.
right.
It's bizarre that this is taught as a sin, but Enoch himself is writing writing this
Yes.
down.
Hmm.
Perhaps there's probably more to it than just simply writing. I mean,
Hmm.
everything else is secrets of this and secrets of that.
Right,
So
right.
there's probably a subtext to what was being written, not so much
Hmm.
just the act of writing. Because if the act of writing itself was wrong, then why was Enoch told to write, and why were
Right,
the prophets
exactly.
told to write, and why do we have the Bible, and why do we have the Book of Enoch? But it does seem to certainly have something to do with sigils and spell casting and witchcraft and things of that nature. So
Right.
words having power, and Ouija board, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
certainly. And you also mentioned Kazdaja, and that's verse 12. He was the one that showed children the smitings of spirits
Right.
and of demons and the smitings of the embryo in the womb. So he's the one that taught the art of abortion. Abortion
Hmm.
starts with him, which is terrible, obviously. But
Yeah.
the previous statements have intrigued me, like the smitings of spirits and demons. Okay, so
Right.
first of all, we know that when an angel-human hybrid is created and killed, that it has a spirit that was, it's a hybrid spirit. It
Hmm.
was never meant to exist, so it has no destination. It
Right.
becomes a wandering, unclean spirit that goes about, hungry and thirsty, but can never, meet those needs.
Right.
And yet he taught that spirits, which I would liken unto angels, and demons, the disembodied spirits of formerly living Nephilim, could be smitten. And I had a conversation about this with Nathan Reynolds. He's got quite the interesting background and
Hmm.
has experienced many unfortunate things, but he's come through it and is now a warrior for the kingdom.
Yes.
But when I read this, I looked at Revelation 19:19, and it says, "The armies of the world have gathered together to make war with him that's coming on the horse." And when we look at when the sky dome opens up and the beings of heaven come down, the people of earth are gathered to make war. And having served in the military, I mean, you create weapons that will work on your enemy. So I started thinking, well, in order to make war with spirit beings, you'd have to have weapons that would actually work against them.
Hmm.
So I started writing about this in Seed as a result of that, that question. And I wrote a scene with Kaz. That's how I actually met Rick Hummer, because I posted various scenes for different characters when I was doing an audition or casting call for the audio drama that I did back in 2013 and 14. And Rick picked the scene with Kazdaja. And in that scene, I have him, this fallen angel, extracting a soul spirit out of a person. And it goes into a holding container. And the way I conceptualized it, and I don't know that it comes across in the way that I wrote it, but the way that it's depicted in my head was very disturbing. And after I wrote it, I was like deeply troubled by it. I was like, man, I don't know if I should put that in there, you know. And I really felt like I felt a strong impression that the Holy Spirit was telling me, yes, you have to keep that in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it was like a day or two later, like very soon after I wrote that scene, that Sheila and I were watching one of the episodes of V when they did the reboot of V, like it was 2004, I think, or something, 2000, early 2000, whenever it was. And I think it was in season 2. There's a scene where Anna, who is like the head of the lizard aliens, is taking sort of a tour of the Vatican, and she sees all these paintings of torment and stuff in hell, and she's like, "What is all this?" You know, and the bishop or whoever was with her, was a cardinal or somebody, was saying, "Well, you know, we believe that humans have an eternal soul, and that, you know, the damned go to hell or the good go to heaven." And she's like, "You have an eternal soul?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, you know, that's what we believe." So next thing you see is Anna trying to extract a soul from one of the humans, you know, that they capture on the, you know, the V ship.
Wow.
And so I was like, I mean, it's literally like a day or two after I'd written the scene that episode aired. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then years later, I meet Nathan Reynolds, and he talked about blue energy. And they talked about this also. A number of people talked about this at the Contact in the Desert conference that I went to last year. You know, people that experience so-called alien abduction, which I just believe is all fallen angel demonic activity. But, you know, they believe that these are beings from other worlds, and that they do, in fact, extract soul energy and use it for various things. And so I'm going, well, I mean, there appears to be precedence for that. If I'm looking at this verse 12, that spirits, I don't know what happens to a spirit when it's smitten. You know, I mean, that seems kind of, it seems to me spirits either go to heaven or hell. And if you're from either one, what happens if you're smitten? You know, like, where do you go?
Right.
I don't have any answers to that. I don't know. Maybe you just cease to exist. But I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, I had interviewed Daniel Duvall and Carolyn Hamlet, and this is a field that he works in and writes about, and he talked about how the elites and the Illuminati and the, you know, those particular bloodlines, they're involved in trying to, even when they do the DID, the dissociative identity disorder, amongst people, that they've figured out techniques on how to split their personalities.
Yeah,
and
fractured,
to fracture them, and so they've really created a science, you know, like the whole MK Ultra and everything. But that this is work,
and all that.
yeah, and this is work on those kind of levels. It's spiritual fracturing and personality. The personality is, you know, like the soul, and so they're fracturing and separating and individualizing and creating. In the case of a lot of women, they make them into sex slaves, and then they, you know, have certain, like, some are domineering or whatever particular trait or aspect, and then with like super soldiers or men, they have, you know, assassins, and they're trying to create the super soldiers, or, you know, whatever. But those kind of things have been part of what the CIA has been working on, and ever since, you know, even supposedly Joseph Mengele was part of all of this with the MK Ultra and everything, and so I think a lot of that is work on a spiritual level that we can't understand fully, and that they are able to do things where they're working on those kind of levels. And perhaps, you know, even with what is spoken of here in this particular text, and what is talked about in the other books, like the Testament of Solomon, where, you know, he's interacting and talking to the devils and demons, and they are talking about certain things that they that are counters to them, and then they bring out all these herbs or whatever, and they have a spiritual effect on these particular devils and demons as they are cited in the conversations that Solomon has with them. And so, these kind of things are written down um, in these lesser keys of Solomon, and the other books of magic that Solomon was said to have written. And so, yeah, I definitely think there's more to it. Even like, um, I don't know if you saw that movie. I think it's called the Rainbow of the Serpent or something of like, and it was about them, creating zombies of people and taking their spirits or their souls out of them, and they were like almost reanimating the dead or something of that nature. And how it's voodoo. It's where they're practicing taking and stealing and controlling people. I even just recently, well, it's been a couple of years actually, but I saw a documentary on Vice that was talking about the world's most deadliest drug. And this particular drug, and it was being refined, but all they had to do was, and what they would do is they would um, put it over, they would have it in like a handkerchief or a napkin, and all they'd have to do is cover somebody's mouth or get it into, the either breathing it in or sniffing it, smelling it, and then they could control them completely to where they wouldn't know what they were doing, and they were completely responsive and interactive. And then they would wake up like 3 days later and not know anything that they did. And they gave an example of this one individual where this person had been put under the influence of this drug, and then the neighbors, when he finally came to, his house was completely empty, and he had been everything had been stolen from him. He went to his neighbors and asked them, what had happened, if they knew anything, if they had seen anything, and they told him the story about how he had come with these other people, and he was helping them and helped move all this stuff out of his house, and they stole and took everything from him, and he didn't remember any of it. And these kind of things, yeah, they said that this kind of thing was happening to a lot of people, and it was so powerful. And then the whole thing of having, the victims participate and be able to be controlled and not understand, what's happening to them. It's frightening. And this was years ago, and I don't remember hearing anything else more about these accounts, but certainly it seems that, it works on those levels as well.
Your partnership with
Many
Sacred Word
truth
Publishing.
seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures. Every day, questions arise.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses?
which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible.
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Join us every other Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Hello friends, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
And we're back on the Revolutionary Radio Project. I'm your host, Rob Skiba, for the final half-hour segment of the broadcast. I am joined with my co-host, Zen Garcia. We're discussing the Book of Enoch. Zen, you were kind of on a roll before the break. Did you want to say anything more, or did you get everything out that you wanted to say in that regard?
Yeah, I'll just add one last thing. I did find the segment. It's called the World's Deadliest Drug, and it says Vice went to Colombia to check out a strange and powerful drug called scopolamine. Scopolamine, also known as the devil's breath. It is a substance so intense that it renders a person incapable of exercising free will. The first few days in the country were a harrowing montage of freaked out dealers and unimaginable horror stories about scopolamine, and then after meeting only a few people with first-hand experience, the story took a far darker turn than we could ever have imagined. So if people want to see what I'm talking about, that's what it was talking, and it covers that. But again, it's the whole thing of taking the people and use them basically like zombies and not even understanding what's going on with them.
Man, that's some crazy stuff.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, so after that, we see this whole business of seeking Michael for the power of the name and the oath. Show him the hidden name. So I wouldn't take that to be Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, or would you? Is it something beyond that?
And I do think that there is association with that as being the ineffable name of the Most High God, but I also think that there's something else to it, because it mentions in Scripture even Yahushua has a name that no one knows.
No one knows, yeah.
Yes, and that that also would be the ineffable name in some manner, and that there's power in knowing or understanding, as this text is alluding to, that name. But I've been working on this book, The Vestures of Light and the Rod of Wonder, and that particular, the Rod of Wonder, the staff of authority, the staff of God, it was said to have been inscribed with the ineffable name of the Most High God. And in some of the stories, it is the Yod-Heh Vav-Heh that is said to be inscribed on this limb, the sapphire staff, which was from the tree of life. And so, I could see connections, but again, I think that there's more to it because it's not something that everybody knows, and it's a secret that not even the angels dare to speak about.
Yeah, they had to go to Michael to get it, so it seems like he was the one in the know, apparently. In that regard, it is interesting that Michael gave them that information. That part's kind of interesting, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of stuff like that. I mean, because it talks about using that name and enunciating it in an oath, and that like it has something to do with creation. The heaven was suspended before the world was created because this oath. Yeah, and these are the secrets of this oath. I mean, it goes on, talks about how strong it is. The heaven was suspended before the world was created. Earth founded, secrets of the mountains. Don't know what to make of that, but he got it from Michael, and it says its name is Bika. Be curious to look into that.
Well, with the rod, Moses was able to use it to split the Reed Sea and to allow them to escape on dry ground, and then he also used it to split the rock to bring forth the waters, to slake the thirst of the Israelites when they were in the desert. And then, again, this rod was inscribed with the ineffable name according to the legend, but it was also used in the wars against the giants, that as long as Moshe held and commanded the staff with authority and did not tire and retreat in his ability to uphold it, they would prevail against the giants. But whenever he began to tire, they would gain the upper hand. And so his brother Aaron and the other priest Hur found themselves holding up Moses'
his
arms, to keep him from tiring until they were able to, completely eradicate, or at least that was the war against Sihon initially, and then afterwards, because they could not believe that he was overcame, then Og and his people came out against Moses, and they fell in the same manner.
So the Bika, that appears to be the name of the oath, maybe? And its name is Bika?
Yeah, I wouldn't
verse
think
13.
that would be the name of the...
It's not the actual name, but it's the document or whatever. That's the way I look at it anyway. That's right. Man, I don't really know what else to make of it other than it appears to be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And again, even all of us will be given names on white stones. Once we are returned to our glorified estate, and then our eat from the tree of life once we are restored to our former estate. And so there's aspects of even who we are that we don't know yet, we don't understand.
Okay, I think we covered pretty much everything here, unless you want to talk about anything on the Son of Man side of it, but I think we've addressed most of that.
Again, I think this is just showing how at the end of days, we know that, again, it is Christ and his second advent, and that because he is the one that punishes them, the evil, not only the fallen angels, but the kings. And we see that continuously throughout the scriptures, that same theme. He sits on the throne of his glory, and so the sum of judgment given to the Son of Man. Yeah, there's no denying, without a doubt, it is Christ, Yahushua, and so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're gonna like the Champion. Keep thinking
Yeah,
that way when
I'll
I'm looking at this
definitely
stuff.
check it out tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, next chapter looks like a short one. So it's 69 in the Lawrence. After this, the name of the Son of Man, living with the Lord of Spirits, was exalted by the inhabitants of the earth. It was exalted in the chariots of the Spirit, and the name went forth in the midst of them. From that time I was not drawn in the midst of them, but he seated me between two spirits, between the north and the west, where the angels received their ropes to measure out a place for the elect and the righteous. There I beheld the fathers of the first men and the saints who dwell in that place forever.
Yeah, I think that is connected to New Jerusalem and how the place of the righteous, and also that when Christ descended down into Sheol and made the thief wait for them outside the gates of paradise, and then when in the Gospel of Nicodemus, when he resurrected Adam and his descendants, they went to paradise and they encountered the thief first, who told them the story about how he believed him to be the Son of Man and Christ, and that he was truly the Son of God, and that he told him, this day you will be with me in paradise. And he gave him the sign of the cross and told him to wait outside the paradise until he came there. And indeed that was fulfilled, because once he returned with Adam and his descendants, then the thief was allowed to enter into paradise with them all together. And then when they entered into paradise, which is New Jerusalem, the city of God, then they encountered Enoch and Elijah, who told them that because they had never died and because they were being preserved for the end of days, when they would come to accuse the Antichrist, and then they would succumb to death, they told them that story. And so, in my opinion, that affirms them as the two witnesses of Revelation 11. But we see that the whole theme of the prophecy that was given to Adam when he was exiled from paradise, that Christ fulfilled that when he told him that he would come 5,500 years after he's cast out and banished and exiled. And indeed that happened and was fulfilled. And that this was also on the 16th of Nisan, the feast of first fruits, and that they were the resurrected. Christ is the first of the resurrected dead, and then he resurrects the Adam and his descendants with him and presents them as the resurrected first fruits to the Father. And so I think that again, this is part of that, but I'll read it really quickly. Chapter 70. And it came to pass after this that his name during his lifetime was raised aloft to that Son of Man and to the Lord of Spirits from amongst those who dwell on the earth. And he was raised aloft on the chariots of the Spirit, and his name vanished among them. And from that day I was no longer numbered amongst them. And he set me between the two winds, between the north and the west, where the angels took the cords to measure for me the place for the elect and the righteous. And there I saw the first fathers and the righteous, who from the beginning dwell in that place. And
so is this Enoch talking here? Enoch, I guess.
Yeah, I do believe so. Yeah.
So the first fathers, I mean, there wouldn't have been a whole lot, before him.
No.
Adam, Seth.
Yeah, no, I don't think any of them were up there until Christ died on the cross. Actually,
well,
in my
it
opinion.
the Lawrence seems a little bit more intriguing. It says, "I beheld the fathers of the first men," as if that's a little different.
Yeah, that would be. Is he talking about like the pre-Adamic races, or the?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
That's what I'm wondering.
the races
or even,
before Adam.
yeah.
Which that would make sense to me, because again, it's my opinion that we do not see Adam and his descendants up in paradise until after Christ descends on the cross, because that was the promise. He would descend to bring liberty to the captives and free them from the bondage of Sheol, which he in fact completed.
Yeah,
so that would make more sense. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm of the opinion that when Yeshua had first risen from the dead and he encounters Mary, he's like, "Hey, don't touch me. I haven't yet ascended to my Father and your Father." That there was 2 ascensions. That he, because we see also that at the time of the crucifixion, and we get like one fragment of a sentence in as I think it's the Gospel of John or one of the Gospels, maybe it's Matthew, where it says that it was a great earthquake and then the saints before were walking around Jerusalem.
Like that's Matthew.
And it's like, that's all we get? Like what? That's
right.
That's like huge, It's like,
yeah,
wait
absolutely.
a minute, that's like massive. And many people saw him and stuff. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, to only get like a half of a sentence mentioned seems really unfair. Of course, I always maintain that the people in the Bible had no knowledge that they were making a Bible.
Right.
They were writing for themselves, for their friends, for Paul's writing to disciples of churches. None of these people had any idea that people would be eavesdropping in on their conversation thousands of years later, or they would have been a lot more specific for us.
Right.
Because that was one of those that always intrigued me. It's like, wait a minute. So yeah, I do believe that they were out and about doing their thing for however long until Yeshua ascended and took them with him as the first fruits of the resurrection.
Right.
And then when he comes back, he's walking through walls and he's doing all kinds of stuff. So he had gone through some sort of transformation. It seems to me that and I could be wrong. He could have gone through the transformation in the tomb, but I tend to think that he raised bodily and then went up and was transformed and came back down, transformed.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that's and I think this is an important part of the story, because this was the prophecy that was fulfilled, that was given to Adam, and that was passed on, to each generation successively thereafter. And it was so important that, again, I make mention of the revelation of the Magi, because in that particular text, it shows that it was the children of Seth that had created the order of the Magi, and with the purpose of being vigilant throughout the generations until the return of Christ, because they knew that they would at some point witness his coming to the earth, and then that that he would lead them to the cave of treasures, and they would bring those items, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh, as a fulfillment also of the prophecy that was given to Adam. And so all these things, they were vigilant upon it, and it was fulfilled in that manner. And then when Christ was crucified and died on the cross, then those 3 days that he was absent from his body is the time that he descended down into Sheol and broke open the gates of iron and brass. And there's so many, like many Psalms and other, other passages in Isaiah even that speak about this particular occurrence and this particular happening, and he did fulfill it. And the Odes of Solomon and other, ancient accounts that cover this in great detail. Greater detail, at least, than in just that one verse in Matthew.
That same artist that does the Champion, his name is Carmen. He did another similar type of musical drama type thing called Lazarus, and he talks about Lazarus, when he was dead, and he's down there, and he's meeting Abraham, and he's meeting David, he's meeting all these people, and they're all sharing stories, right? They're like, oh yeah,
Right.
this, that, and the other thing, and he's listening. He's like, hey, listen, and of course Carmen's like Italian, so he's got this Italian kind of accent going. He's like, hey, listen, man, I was there when you fed the 5,000. I was there when he did this. He's talking about, and he even knew me. As a matter of fact, I think I hear him calling me now. And meanwhile, back at the grave, Jesus, and he says, and he does this deep voice like Lazarus. He's like, I think, and then it builds up to the crescendo of the song. But finally he's like, Lazarus, come forth.
Gotta go, guys.
Yep. It's like, hey, well, I gotta go. Yeah, I love that. And that's an interesting story too. It's like that whole event with Lazarus happening right before the crucifixion was specifically to bolster their fear. Their faith, so that they would, and because he waited 4 days. And the interesting study I did on that a while back was the study of the silver cord that Solomon writes about. That there was a belief that the spirit hangs around for like 3 days or so, and it's like attached like an umbilical cord, sort of like to the body. But as the body starts to finally decay, the spirit says, "Okay, I'm out," and the silver cord is severed. And there was a belief that somebody could be resuscitated. They could be brought back from the dead, as we see people with CPR and different things. They're brought back, but only up until 3 days. After that, no, not going to happen. Or within a few days, whatever it is. And so for him to intentionally wait to the 4th day, and of course but he stinketh, they knew the significance of that. The silver cord's been severed. He's gone. He's like, look, I am the resurrection. Yeah, I got that. Like, so I mean, because they'd seen him raise people from the dead before, but somebody who's been dead for 4 days, that was like the ultimate super miracle. That for him to perform that right before his crucifixion, should have served as a pretty massive sign to them.
Right. Yeah. The Chronicles of Longinus, which is one of these texts from the Thracian church. Longinus, he's the
centurion.
Guard, the centurion that pierces the side of Christ, and then some of the blood dribbles into his blind eye and heals him, and he becomes a believer, and then he begins to hang out with the apostles thereafter. But in that particular text, it describes the story of how he went to Lazarus and asked him about his resurrection, and what it was like, and how it affected him and his faith, and how it affected the other apostles. And so Lazarus tells him the story of what happened to him, and how he was in darkness, and he was surrounded by just what seemed to be the torturers, the devils, the demons that rule down there. And then he saw the light of Christ, and he said that the light came to him and then pulled him out of there. And this is something that we don't see in the story, but because he calls him forth. But and so that's part of the testament of how Longinus became a believer. And afterwards he was supposedly sainted or something of that nature. But in that particular Chronicles of Longinus, which if people are interested, I did do a show on it. We haven't released the actual manuscript yet, but you can hear the whole 18 chapters that I read and share of this particular text. And it's an incredible account. It also covers in great detail the story of Mary Magdalene, and talks about it. you know how the Dan Brown people believe that Mary Magdalene married Christ and that had children with him and all that. But this particular text undeniably denies all that. And even though he had a love for Mary, it was the same as the love he had for all of his apostles and, all of the people. And it describes in that text in great detail how their love was not anything that was physical and how she was redeemed of all that. And Longinus talks about how he knew her previously and had even partaken of her services when she was involved in that kind of work. And so, yeah, completely, go forth and sin no more. And that's exactly what she did.
Have you watched the Chosen TV series yet?
No, I have not. Is it on Netflix?
No, it's, I think it's the Chosen.tv. Let me just check real quick. It was crowdfunded. It's very well done. They raised something like $18 million or something.
Wow.
They're trying to make the first ever TV series of the life of Christ and the apostles. But it's the Chosen.tv.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Do it. It's really good. I really enjoy what they've done, and I really like what they did with Mary Magdalene and how they set that whole story up. But it's shot here in Texas too, not too far from about 45 minutes away. So when you see Galilee and everything, it's actually here in Texas. They embellish things with CGI and whatnot, but it's quite good. And people are in the chat room a little bit confused about the whole paradise issue. Yeah, at this time, the time we're talking about, paradise was under the earth with Lazarus and the rich man. You could read the story where, Lazarus could see the rich man could see Lazarus, but there's a great chasm between them. So Hades, as the Greeks called it, was a multi-compartment place under the earth where there's like a good compartment, there was the bad compartment, and then there was Tartarus, which was the lowest compartment, the prison of the gods. It's also known as Abraham's bosom. So that's where Lazarus would have been, because people are like, "Well, that'd have been cruel if he was in heaven and Christ ripped him out of heaven. That wouldn't have been right." It's like,
no, he wasn't.
No,
there
he was not in heaven. But paradise, at least as I understand it, was liberated, as a result of the descension after the cross, when Christ's spirit went underground first into the heart of the earth, and then liberated all that and came up. And then that's what we were talking about earlier, brought them up as first fruits of the resurrection.
Right. And, what I'm regarding as paradise is New Jerusalem, which is above the vaulted dome of the earth. But they were held in Abraham's bosom, yes, which was in Sheol.
Yeah, that's they're referring to, where Lazarus was when.
Right. When that's Abraham's bosom for sure. Yeah. And for people that don't know the passage we're talking about in Matthew 27. Oh, we are. Oh, wow. Well, anyways, Matthew 27:53. That was quick.
Yeah, it was. All right, brother. We'll be on your show next week.
All right, with the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries. Be blessed, all.
Blessings, everybody. Good night.
Good night, all. Shalom.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.